Food delivery has changed over the past couple years since its inception. Base pay keeps decreasing every few years, and since then, a couple cities have taken notice since base pay is pretty much universal all throughout the US. Only three major areas having the highest minimum wages have taken action to implement rules to attempt to force DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub to pay drivers more. They are California, New York City, and Seattle, Washington. In 2019, Assembly Bill 5 was passed in California, and it was designed by lawmakers to require companies classifying gig economy workers as employees. This law required all app-based food workers as well as ride-hail drivers to be classified as employees rather than independent contractors. But a day before the companies were ordered to comply with the new law, Proposition 22 was passed.
And a big win for companies such as Uber and Lyft today. The California Supreme Court upheld Proposition 22, which
Proposition 22 was a ballot initiated in California that became a law after the November 2020 state election, passing with 59% of the vote and granting app-based transportation and delivery companies an exception to Assembly Bill 5 by classifying their drivers as independent contractors and not employees. They get 120% of the local minimum wage for each hour a driver spends driving, but not for time waiting. And they also get 30 cents a mile for expenses for each mile driven with a passenger or on the way. This was considered a big win for these companies as they don't have to provide all the benefits and protections of being an employee. One of the benefits of being an independent contractor that people really like is that you work when you want. In a sense, you don't have to ask for time off. You can cram all your work into a few days. Maybe you want to work a 4-day per week instead of working 5 days.
I really liked it because I know that I can work whenever I want. I'm my own boss. When I'm working, if I have some urgent stuff to do, I can just stop and do it and then turn back, and DoorDash will not punish me for that. 100% flexibility. I really enjoy Proposition 22.
Let's see if the new pay structure benefits the drivers in the end.
Dashing Felon here, coming with you with a controversial topic, California's Prop 22. Is it good or bad? Well, let's see. I made $672.25 last week in about 29 hours. It was really 28 and a half, but I'll say 29 just for the sake of argument. And my hourly rate at that rate is $23.18 an hour. So let's see what I made with the Prop 22. I got $32.99 this week from Prop 22 alone. So it brought me up to $705.24 for the whole week. So that brings my hourly wage up to $24.32 an hour. So that's really good, right? I thought I wasn't going to get anything because I did so well already. This last week, I set out with a goal of trying to make as much as someone would make $20 an hour full time, but in only 32 hours using gig work.
Next, we have New York City. They had a different approach. In 2021, a new law was proposed to have workers be paid a minimum wage for delivery time, which in April of 2024 is $19.56. There is also an aggregate time of wait time, which is all the wait time pulled together and divided by all the drivers. Before the law was passed, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub tried to sue the city to block the minimum wage for gig workers. They tried to argue that the regulators use faulty data to calculate the new compensation rule. I mean, that's just crazy. It doesn't matter what the data they use. The city can pick any number they want so the workers can make enough to live. Of course, these companies try to pit everyone against each other and say, oh, the customers getting hurt and the restaurants are being harmed. The New York Supreme Court ultimately upheld the law and it went into effect this year. New York City also has a different set of rewards requirements and benefits for DoorDash. Unlike California, there is no extra pay for the miles they travel to deliver the order. This isn't too bad considering that most of the deliveries are done on a bike. New York City is an absolute jungle driving around, and you're not going to find parking anywhere to get into the restaurants or go to the customer's building. If you try to deliver food in a car, you'll make less than minimum wage for sure. You'll be moving so slow. It's one of the most expensive cities in America. So what are the benefits of the new pay structure?
We have $110 plus $4 in cash and the $6 that we are picking up. In total, we have $120 in 5 hours.
Next up, we got Seattle. During the pandemic, the city council passed a hazard pay ordinance to raise the base pay to $2.50 if it starts in Seattle, and you get another $2.50 if you end up in Seattle. This was awesome. We were making such good money for the work that we were doing, driving around in the cold rain, delivering to people who don't want to go outside and look at other people. Stacked orders were the best. They were like a gold mine, and the order volume was booming. I would average probably a good $40 on the slowest day, multi-apping and driving minimal miles. I think I was driving about 80 miles per se for a full day and making $3 to $4 a mile. This was short-lived though, because it was just temporary until the pandemic was over. Then the city decided to pass a new ordinance in 2022 where drivers were going to earn by time and earn by miles, known as PayUp. This came out to be 44 cents per minute and 74 cents per mile. There was also more transparency. There was no hidden tips. They had to give a reason for deactivation and allow for dash at any time. These were pretty good rules, except for the dash at any time. There were just too many dashers and not enough orders. DoorDash and Uber Eats revolted though, and they decided to jack up all the fees. The fees basically double the cost of the food before tips and taxes, and nobody was ordering. People who say that they were making more probably are saying that they were making that per offer and not the total time that they were working. About 4 months in, after the ordinance went into effect, the Seattle Council was already trying to weaken it. They got this feedback that order volume has dropped significantly and that drivers weren't getting any orders, restaurants were losing money. I mean, that's what happens when you jack up the fees. So let's see what the Seattle Council president has to say.
In public comment, this was referred to Sarah Nelson's proposal. Yes, I did advance this legislation, but I want to make sure that people recognize that this was an agreement that was forged between Drive Forward and the network companies. Whatever your people are going to say about Drive Forward, they are an advocacy organization for drivers. They have supported a lot of the pieces of legislation that came before council and that are now on the books that the network companies did not strongly oppose. So, but in any case, these agreements were very finely balanced between both sides of the parties. And I want to clarify and put a little bit of my spin, but actually I'm channeling the perspective of the people that put this forward.
Drive Forward is a group that was created by Uber, and they also get donations from Uber. Some people are claiming that the president has a conflict of interest because she was a part owner in the Fremont Brewing Company and is sold off to this restaurant group. And what they're trying to say is that the restaurants are on the food delivery networking company's side. And I'm not really buying that. I don't think the restaurants are on their side. I think that the restaurants are more on the driver's side because both of us have to put up with this company who's just sucking away all the money and just looking out for themselves. So based off my own results, when I was dashing in Seattle, I got like maybe one offer per hour, and that's not gonna cut it. That's no one's gonna survive off of that. If you do that, you're making below minimum wage. So I know what it feels like to make below minimum wage. I know that I was killing it before, but then all this shake up and I could see kind of how it's kind of really rough. I think that what they should do is absolutely bring back the hazard pay model. Everybody knows that it works because we lived through it for like 2 years or a year, and the order volume was still high. Everybody was still making a lot of money. They should absolutely bring that back, and then they can use it to see if these companies are colluding to jack up the fees. I mean, nobody has done anything. They're just putting pressure on the city to change the rules. That's kind of BS. So they should definitely do something like that. Yeah, so between these three cities, I would say that looks like New York and California are doing just fine. I mean, $25 an hour, 24, 25, that's okay. I guess that's a little bit better than minimum wage. But for Seattle, definitely the worst city right now.